in SSI and actually in Medi-Cal too. All right. So we're going to jump in. We're going to be covering some key government benefits, such as SSI, Medi-Cal,
I don't know if you want to listen to it.
and IHSS. Please mute. So please mute to make it easy for everyone to hear. Thank you. And then we'll get into the purpose and use of special needs trusts. And then more specifically, what is a pooled special needs trust? And then drilling down even more, what are the JLA trust pool trusts? And then we'll end on CalABLE savings accounts, which is a good option and something to consider for everyone here. And like I said, I'm happy to take questions. Please type them in chat. Okay, so what is the main problem that many of us face, either as individuals or for our loved ones or for people we work with in our agencies? So, how can a person with disabilities obtain eligibility for as many government benefits as possible, and then also be able to get money from an inheritance or a legal settlement or winning the lottery? Um, or some other unexpected windfall of funds. So many government programs, as many of us know, have both asset limits. They usually call them resources rather than assets, and also income. And in government language world, income is referring to money that's coming in on a monthly basis. So there can be earned income from working and unearned income from things like alimony, child support, or investment income. So it's not enough to just meet the disability criteria, although that, of course, is super important. You also have to often meet those resource limits and income limits. And let's keep in mind that the government benefits, as important as they are really just designed to get you barely to the federal poverty level. And we know certainly in Southern California, and for almost every part of California, that's not going to be enough to live on. So sometimes both things can be true. This is not an either or. Yes, you need to get all the government benefits that you can, and you need to, if possible, from family inheritance monies or a lawsuit or another potential bucket of funds. So on the left-hand side of the slide are need-based benefits. So that means with these benefits, the government's going to be looking at your income level. So that's supplemental security income, SSI, and also Medi-Cal. That's California's Medicaid program. So, we're in a presidential cycle right now. You're hearing a fair amount of talk about Medicaid, and certainly you hear about Medicare. So remember, Medicaid is our national health insurance for low income individuals. And in California, that program is called Medi-Cal because California supplements and adds a lot of funds beyond that that is given from the federal government. On the right-hand side of the slide are entitlement benefits. So you could be a gazillionaire and you are still entitled to these benefits if you meet the criteria. So Social Security, that's SSDI, and that's Social Security Disability Insurance. That's when someone's been working for a while and they become disabled. Could be from a car accident, could be from cancer, could be from any number of things, and they're no longer able to work. And because they paid into the system while they were working, they're able to go on disability, as people usually refer to it. And then, of course, there's Medicare, which is our national health insurance program for people over the age of 65. But many people with disabilities under the age of 65 also qualify for Medicare. And that's because if you get SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, for 24 straight months. It has to be consecutive months. Then you are entitled to Medicare, even if you are under the age of 65. So we have a lot of clients who are enrolled with us at JLA who actually have all four of these benefits. And so I always say the more the better. You never want to, don't turn your back on any benefits, even if there's red tape and even if it's a pain in the butt to keep that benefit. So, another way that people with disabilities might be getting SSDI is based on their parents' earnings record. So, if somebody, um, if somebody's child with a disability um, turns 18, they're entitled to get part of the parents' Social Security retirement. So I know this is a confusing one, but it's super important. So let's say the dad's name is John. John reaches 67 and he retires. John has a daughter named Mary. Mary was diagnosed at the age of 3 with autism. Mary is now 22. So because Mary was diagnosed before the age of 22, and she's now over the age of 18, she gets this benefit called Disabled Adult Child Benefit. So when John retires, let's say John gets $1,200 a month in Social Security retirement. His daughter Mary is going to get $600. And then many years from now, when John passes away, Mary gets 75%. Or in our example, Mary would be getting $900 a month. Now, you can only collect this disabled adult child benefit from one parent. Parents can be divorced. It doesn't have to be the custodial parent. And the other thing to know about this benefit is when the parent goes to collect Social Security, that's when the parent has to check a little box. Do you have a disabled adult child? You say yes. Then you will be contacted and sent a lot of paperwork that has to be filled out by a medical provider of that son or daughter. Okay, moving on. What is supplemental security income? So this is a different program of the Social Security Administration, SSI. So this is for people who've never been able to work, or they're older and over 65. So you can work and get SSI. The maximum you can earn from employment right now is $1,550. That goes up every year. So that will be increased in 2025. So for most people who are getting SSI in California, they're going to get right now $1,182.94. If you're blind, you get more. In certain living conditions, you might get more, like if you don't have access to a kitchen. So out of that $1,182.94, 943 is the federal share. And then California, the state of California supplements this additional $239. So SSI is a great benefit. It's a monthly cash grant that most people get with direct deposit into their checking account or into a rep payee account. And one of the best things about SSI is you get this automatic linkage with Medi-Cal, and you only have to be getting $1 of SSI. So there's many different types of Medi-Cal. Some of them have a share of cost, some of them have copays. The kind of Medi-Cal that's linked to SSI doesn't have any copays, doesn't have any share of cost. So that's why, if possible, you want to hold on to that SSI as long as you can. You are allowed to have certain assets, as we remember, they're called resources in the federal government. So you can have a house you live in, you can have one car, you can have a small life insurance policy, you can have a burial plot for you or immediate family. You can have a burial fund, you can have household goods and personal effects. Now, the big problem with SSI is you're limited to only $2,000 at any one time in your checking account, savings account, um, Bitcoin, gift cards, stocks, anything that could be quickly turned into cash. So it's 2,000 for an individual or a minor child, or 3,000 for a couple or the parents of a minor child. So that 2000 limit was created in the early 1970s and is ridiculously outdated, but Congress has not gotten around to changing it. So that's why we're all living with this ridiculous, outdated maximum of $2,000. So keep that in mind as we go forward. SSI defines income in these two different ways. Unearned income is something you're getting from like passive income, like annuities, pensions, alimony, child support, dividends. If you own a property and you're getting rent from a tenant, or you have an Airbnb property, that would all be unearned income. Earned income is for some kind of employment, could be um, working for a company, could be working for yourself. Um, but that is how they defined earned income. So unearned income, you lose your SSI dollar for dollar after the first $20. So that's not good. And earned income is much better. After the first $65, you lose $1 for every $2. So another way of thinking of it is 50 cents on the dollar. But if you work and keep your SSI, you'll come out ahead than just living on SSI. All right, SSI has this completely ridiculous rule called in-kind services and maintenance, ISM. So basically, what the federal government is saying is if somebody else is helping the beneficiary to pay for these different categories, food, shelter, or basic utilities, the federal government says, you don't need so much money. And we're going to reduce the federal share by 1/3 of our federal share plus $20. So right now, that's $314. So right now, if somebody else buys your food, like a family member or a nonprofit or even your own trust, you have to take that ISM penalty. But the good news is, I'm going to explain this more on the next slide, the food penalty is going away October 1st. Yay. And the rent penalty is also changing, but it's a little more complicated. You will still be penalized if someone else is paying for your heating, fuel, gas, electricity, water, sewer, or garbage removal. But this is a very welcome and wonderful change. So this slide talks about the big changes that are coming, less than a month from now, like what, a week, almost just a week away. So food is no longer be counted as in kind. So that means if you're on SSI, like I said, a family member, a nonprofit, or your own trust can pay for food without any kind of deduction of your SSI. And then rent subsidy is also changing. This gets more complicated, but basically, people have to be paying rent of more than 300, the presumed market value, which is $334.33. So if you're paying more than that amount, rent will no longer be penalized as well. So that's really good news. But it means that, like, if you have an adult children over the age of 18 living with their parents, the parents should actually draw up like a little lease, a little renter's agreement saying that every month the adult child with disability is going to give, let's round this up, $350 a month to pay for their rent. And you'll have to show that renter's agreement to SSI when you go in for your next redetermination. And This URL is really good and explains much more detail than I'm going to be able to go into today because of time constraints. Okay, what is Medi-Cal? So that is California's Medicaid program. It pays for all kinds of medical care, going to see a physician in the hospital, in-home caregivers, and also long-term care. So this is the only kind of public assistance that pays for long-term care in a skilled nursing facility. Medicare only covers 100 days post hospital visits. Medi-Cal also can cover durable medical equipment like wheelchairs, also prescription medication as long as it's on the state formulary, end of life. You do have to be low income, but the asset limit in California is gone. Other states still have it, but it is gone in California. You can have both Medi-Cal and Medicare. That's called dual eligible or Medi-Medi. You can also have private insurance from an employer or from Covered California. Medi-Cal is always going to be secondary or tertiary because the reimbursement rates are so low for providers. And then if you are already eligible for Medi-Cal, you might be eligible for in-home supportive services, IHSS. It's a California program that's run through the counties, through the Department of Social Services, and the person with a disability hires caregivers, and you can hire family members to be the caregivers. The county Department of Social Service decides how many hours are needed based on what's called activities of daily living. And this is pretty basic stuff like, can the person get out of bed? Can they get dressed? Can they brush their own teeth? Can they use the toilet by themselves? Can they make themselves breakfast? Can they take their own meds? So, based on the individual needs, people are given X amount of hours per month. It maxes out at 283 hours a month, and that's with something called protective supervision, meaning that the person could endanger themselves or endanger others if left alone at any time. So, public benefits can change over the lifetime of someone. Under the age of 18, minors are still under their parents' roof and their parents' responsibility. After age 18, they're considered to be an adult unless they're conserved, and some of the powers of being an adult are removed through the probate court process. We talked about when a parent retires, there's that disabled adult benefit that's available for a lot of people with disabilities through SSDI. And then 2 years after getting SSDI, people qualify for Medicare. If you're a regional center, once you qualify, you generally keep eligibility throughout the lifetime. And same with Medi-Cal. You'll generally keep your eligibility as long as you fall under the income limits. SSI and IHSS recipients can also get food stamps. In California, we call it CalFresh. The income threshold is a little higher. It's 200% of the federal poverty level. And you can apply easily for food stamps over the phone, in person. They don't use stamps anymore. It's a debit card. It's an EBT card that's loaded monthly. If the disabled adult child is living at home, that adult child has to be over the age of 22. Even though they're over the age of 18, parental responsibilities, at least for this program, extend to the age of 22, which is the same as the public school special education program. That's why it's 22. All right. So as I mentioned, the Medi-Cal asset limit is gone completely in this calendar year, but there's still income limits. So if you have $1 million in the bank and you're drawing money every month to live on, you could find yourself over the limit of income with Medi-Cal. So if you're pulling more than $20,000 as an individual, or two, let's say two people, like that's like a mom and a kid. If you're pulling in more than that amount, you'll run into issues with Medi-Cal. You could end up paying share of cost. Um, and then if your income gets very high, you could lose your Medi-Cal altogether. All right, I'm going to pause here and see what questions we have. Alexandra, what do we got?
Somebody asked, my son is only getting this amount. Should I contact Social Security if they're only getting $800?
They're probably getting less because of that in-kind services and maintenance, that ISM. So I would wait till after October 1st when the rules change. And then, yeah, it would be a good idea to contact your worker at the local SSI office.
Okay. Somebody else was sent a form by Social Security to fill out that states how much they're charging their son for rent. That's more of a statement than a question.
Yes, so just make sure that the SSI has that.
I have one more. If a person can have up to $100,000 in a CalABLE account and not lose public benefits, what is the advantage of having a special needs trust, assuming another sibling could be sure that the CalABLE account is funded and available to the sibling with a disability?
So the thing about the CalABLE account, it's we're going to get to it at the end, but the maximum that you can put into it is whatever the IRS gift tax exemption is. So right now that's $18,000. So sometimes, quite often in Southern California, there's a sale of a family home, and when you divide that up among the siblings, quite often that's going to be more than that $18,000. So that's an example of why you would need a special needs trust. And the other thing to think about is, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a fiduciary, but lawyers are always like thinking of all the terrible what if. So in this case, like what if something bad happens to the sibling? You know, what's the backup? So that's where having a professional trustee, such as our services, comes into play. All right. Anything else?
No, not currently.
Um, some people are sending me direct messages. It's a little hard for me to answer direct messages. So if I don't get to them, I'm going to put my email. Uh, you might need to email me afterwards.
Can we
I
ask
have
a
a
question,
question.
or you just want to, where do you want us to write these questions?
In chat, but some people are sending me one-to-one messages, and I'm
Oh,
and I'm saying those are going to be hard for me to answer.
oh, I sent it to everyone.
Oh, okay. Well, someone sent me, a couple of people are sending me direct messages. I may or may not get to them because I've got a lot of things in my view. So if I don't answer them, just shoot me a quick email, and I just put my email in chat.
I have a
Um,
question.
Yeah. Hi. Yes, Stephanie.
Hi. We were, I think something triggered it, maybe the SSDI and receiving retirement benefits, but they called me, I guess, to review the income for my son for his SSI. And I wasn't thinking, and I kind of just said, of course, we have him in a studio. And of course, in Los Angeles, there's no way that he can afford that. And I said, no, we help him with his expenses, which totally, and she didn't ask the amount, but we immediately, a few weeks later, got a letter stating our benefits were reduced by, I think,
Right.
like $500 because of the in-kind.
Right.
So I immediately was able to, I actually touched base with an attorney that helped us get the SSI. She didn't advise me. The only thing she did say was he should be getting at least $300 more because they reduced it by that 1/3 because
Right.
of the in-kind support. So I immediately contacted them and I tried to research a little bit, and they did say charging for rent is one way to do it instead of trying to divide
Absolutely.
all of the expenses by how many people are in the household, which would be my husband's on lease, but my son is actually there. So it's kind of two people, but really, we wanted to put it in terms of we are charging him rent. So I contacted the Social Security. She did fax, she sent me a form that
Good.
this form I was talking about. And I read up, so I put, a certain amount. It's under the uh, it was a little bit more than the 300, but it's under 600 because I think 600 after that they consider it to be in kind or something. So I'm just concerned, I'm just confused. How am I going to, what else do I state? I mean, there is also one other utility bill that we can show he splits, and then there's food. What do I state so that it's not like we're paying for, it's still confusing. What do I state so that we can make sure he gets the maximum SSI benefit? Aside from the in-kind,
Right.
not the, aside from the charging him the rent on that form directly from Social
Well,
Security.
rent's going to be the main thing, but now that they've changed the rules on food, so
Mhm.
you can definitely go back in, if it's on food. Now, for the utilities, you need to show that, he is paying for his share or he's paying certain bills, in
Right.
his name.
Well,
Right.
the rent in this house, in this apartment, basically includes most of the utilities except for this one extra utility bill. So that we can definitely show as half. So, and
Yeah.
I tried to show, I mean, I guess we could do a breakdown, but there's no way of actually breaking down what that is. I guess I can kind of do that if they ask.
I would create a little spreadsheet that shows exactly.
And
Yeah.
then what is the maximum I should show that that I mean, I don't want to show that he's getting I mean, if it's less than what he could get, you still get the full benefit, right? If you were
Yeah,
spending
because the
less.
idea, yeah, I mean, the idea with SSI is most of it should be, it's designed that it's mostly spent on rent, rent, food, and utilities, but it can
Right.
also pay for other things like cell phone.
Okay,
Right.
so if we add everything up and it's less than let's say he was getting $800 and it's less than that, they're going to say, oh, well, you only need $800, right? They're going to say, no, you're under the thing, so therefore you're entitled to the full benefit. Which one would they say?
Well, you have to show what the real costs are, even if he's not paying them right now.
Hmm. But
So
if
I don't want to take up too much time on this one case, Stephanie.
okay,
So,
do you know where we can get clarification of that? Because it's really confusing.
um, yeah, you can, legal aid actually is very helpful with that. The
Okay,
Legal Aid Foundation.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. I'm gonna,
We had one other question we skipped
okay.
over, Andrea. My son is 34 and had some benefits, but they stopped. What is the best way to start getting these benefits?
Well, the big question is you should have received a letter from the government explaining why they stopped. The government usually doesn't just end your benefits without sending an explanatory letter.
Well, they did.
It,
Okay. So they did. They sent a letter that said the reason your benefits are being stopped is because you haven't used them. But the reason why he hasn't used them is because they stopped putting money on his EBT card.
well, then you need to go back to the county. With EBT, if it's EBT, then you need to go back to LA County, talk to a caseworker, and reopen his case.
But he also needs to get more of these services, cash benefits and so forth. So I guess my plan is to go to, is to make an appointment. He needs to get a caseworker that gets, are there caseworkers that get assigned to somebody?
It used to be they've moved more to call centers.
Yeah,
Is he regional center?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, then it would be no.
What, I don't know what you mean by,
Regional centers are state-funded nonprofits that provide services for people with specific disabilities, autism, cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, and traumatic brain injury under the age of 22.
okay. I believe he would qualify for that. He's just
How,
never had those benefits given to
how
him.
old's your son?
34.
Well, we'll have to talk offline. It's
Okay.
going to be very hard. You're going to have to make you have to show medical records that he had one of those
I
one of
have
those
those.
qualifying diagnoses before the age of 22.
I have those.
Okay, all right.
But
So,
thank you.
all right. So, I'm assuming there's a fair number of regional center clients here, right? So, all right. We're gonna move back in to the presentation because that was just the first half was about benefits, and the second half is how do you keep all those benefits once you manage to get through all that red tape we were just discussing. All right. So, special needs trusts are legal instruments that are designed to help a person with a diagnosed disability keep all their government benefits and then be able to receive private funds, either from an inheritance or a legal settlement. Now, the catch is any money that's in a special needs trust can only be used for the beneficiary. So if grandma, God forbid, gets cancer and needs cancer treatment, you cannot take money out of your son's special needs trust and, use it for grandma's cancer treatment. It can only be used for the beneficiary. Special needs trusts have to be irrevocable. So most people in California, when you go see a trust and estate attorney, are going to tell you to set up a living trust, sometimes called a family trust. Those are all revocable. So that means they can be changed while the people who made the trust, known as settlers, while the settlers are living. Irrevocable means once it's set up, it cannot be changed. The reason for that is because if it could be changed, then the person with disabilities could end the special needs trust, and then they would get a whole bunch of income, and then they're going to be over income for all these different government benefits. Special needs trust allow the beneficiary to have all the benefits of these government programs we discussed, plus other ones like Section 8. And plus, you can have the benefits of the assets, plus investment income that that your special needs trust is creating from investing in a variety of conservative investments. So there's two basic kinds of special needs trust. There's first party. So that means money that only belong to the beneficiary, never belong to anyone else. So if someone gets in a car accident and they're already getting SSI, let's say Mary that we talked about before. Mary's 50 years old now. She is getting SSI and some SSDI. She gets in a car accident and she gets a $50,000 legal settlement. If she keeps that 50,000, that's going to mess up her SSI, probably her Medi-Cal too. And so she needs to set up a first party special needs trust. Now, the thing about special needs, a first party special needs trust, after Mary passes, the state Medicaid office, so in this case, California's Medi-Cal office, is going to come calling and say, hey, we let you keep all your government benefits, but we knew you had all this money in a trust. Now that the beneficiary has passed, we're asking the trustee to pay the state back for all the costs that were incurred on behalf of that person. Also, we've had many cases where parents don't plan ahead or grandparents, and the person with the disability ends up just inheriting, let's say, $100,000 from a sale of a family home. So in that case, you would also have to go with the first party. So it's much better to plan ahead and do a third party. So that means that money, the assets are going to come from someone else, like a parent or a grandparent. We've had some set up by aunts, uncles, family, friends. We've had a few set up from GoFundMe's, from a whole bunch of people. So those would all be third party. And what's really great about those is there's no Medi-Cal payback. So if the beneficiary passes away, money that's left over can go to any named heirs. So it could go to family members, it could go to kids, grandkids, It could also go to your favorite charity. So for many years, high net asset rich people have been basically told, use a professional trustee, use a corporate trustee. But middle class families have been using family members. But the best practice is really to use that professional trustee. In California, we have something called licensed fiduciaries. So I'm a licensed fiduciary, as is my colleague Ron Parks, who acts as trustee for everyone enrolled in our pool trust. There's lots of really good professional trustees, licensed fiduciaries out there, but they usually want to see at least $1 million coming into the special needs trust before they will provide their services. This is also true for banks and most trust companies. So what a lot of middle class families do is they'll have a sibling, they'll name a sibling to be the trustee. But this is not recommended because it can really become a burden. There's legal implications, there's tax issues. You have to keep being an advocate, as we talked about with these government benefits. And plus there could be personality tensions and issues. So what's the solution for families who don't have $1 million ready to put it into a special needs trust? So the answer is a pool trust. So Congress created these in 1993. All of them are operated by nonprofits such as JLA Trust. We have a master trust agreement written by an expert trust and estate attorney that works like an umbrella, and everybody signs underneath that same master trust, and they're going to sign into our trust by using a joinder agreement. It's just a legal agreement. It's a contract. And we have a separate sub account for every beneficiary, but money is pooled for investment purposes. So it's similar to a mutual fund if you're familiar with those. Everybody has their own account and their own account number. But the reason why the pool trust might be a really good option for your family is our setup fees are going to be a lot cheaper. If you go to a private attorney, they're going to want anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 to set up a special needs trust. For 20,000, if you have $20,000, you can have an active account with us, and we have professional investment managers to manage the money. Plus, we're leveraging, we're combining, everyone's money in the pool trust for those investment purposes. And really important, we minimize the conflict of interest with other family members. So we still have a really important role for family members, for siblings. We call it beneficiary advocate. So they can get copies of statements, they can help create spending plans, but they're not having to every day get a request from their sibling. Hey, can I buy a new video game? Hey, why won't you let me, take another vacation to Vegas? So the pool trust really what it does, it's giving high quality professional trustee services for below market prices. So we here at JLA Trust, we offer first party trust, third party trust. Those are both active. And then for parents planning ahead, we have something called the future funded third party. And the total cost is only $800 to set that up. And like I said, if you went to a private trust and estate attorney, that's going to be a minimum of $3,000. So we don't disperse any money until there's at least $20,000. So once money is in the special needs trust, what can you use it for? So it's a very wide variety of purposes. I mentioned almost everybody enrolled with us is using their trust funds for their cell phone, for internet, all the streaming channels that we all love, certainly clothes, shoes, furniture, electronic equipment, anything needed for school, higher education, medical and dental expenses not covered by other health insurance. A lot of our clients are middle-aged and they've been on Medi-Cal and they've got really bad teeth because they haven't been able to get the dental care that they've needed. And so it's not unusual for people to have $10,000 worth of dental work that needs to be covered by the trust. We can also pay for trips and vacations. We can't pay for the whole family to go, but we can pay for the person with a disability and one aid if the person with a disability needs an aid, either for behavioral issues or for assistance with activities of daily living. We can also use trust money to supplement IHSS hours. Because as we were saying, the IHSS hours are only going to be 8 or 9 hours a day at the max. Some people need 12 hours of help. Some people need 24/7. So that's where in-home help can be paid for out of a trust. You can use money in a trust to pay for a car, even if the beneficiary can't drive themselves, as long as the car is being used primarily to drive the beneficiary around. And lastly, money can be used to buy a home, condo, or mobile home. It's tough though in Southern California, given our high housing costs. We have a partnership with a wonderful company based in San Francisco called TrueLink. So TrueLink is the one that has this really amazing restricted use Visa debit card that most of our clients receive. And that's how clients are able to pull money from their trust using that TrueLink card. And all money is being invested under the Uniform Prudent Investor Law. And the accounts are held at Charles Schwab and custodial accounts. And we have 3 different options: conservative, conservative growth, and moderate. So they're all modeled on retirement accounts. So they're all very conservative. And then, I'll pause here before I go to CalABLE and see if we have any more questions.
The first question is, are special needs trusts the same as a CalABLE account?
So that's a great question. So no. And we're just about to talk about that. Everybody with a disability who received their diagnosis before the age of 26, they should have a CalABLE account. But the CalABLE accounts become more like checking accounts, money in, money out. The special needs trust is going to become like a savings account or your nest egg for your future, especially if you have a child who's, let's say, 23, right? And God willing is going to live many, many decades. You want to plan ahead for when that child who's now 23 is going to be 83. So that's where special needs trusts come in. So CalABLE accounts and special needs trust work really well together, but the truth is you need both. So there was another
So
question.
what do we mean when we say that JLA has a $20,000 minimum, and what happens when a balance drops below $20,000?
So in order to activate an account initially, we need $20,000. And you can once you've done that, you can certainly spend it down. You can spend it all the way down to zero. You're not required to keep 20,000, at all times. But we need 20,000 to activate the account. The reason why is when we activate the account, there's going to start being fees. We have annual trustee fees, and our partner TrueLink has a 1% annualized fee. So we don't want to charge any fees until there's at least $20,000. And once there's $20,000, also we're investing that money along with other people's money. So the business model is that in a good quarter, and we've had a lot of good quarters recently, the investment income is going to cover any fees. So that's the whole business model of what we've set up here.
How in depth does JLA get with case management with a regional center?
That's a great question. So as part of your enrollment fee for an active account, And the enrollment fee for an active account is $1,300. Or your annual trustee fee, you get 2 hours of direct service every month, meaning 2 hours of talking to one of your assigned reps, emails, phone calls, that kind of thing, in-person meetings. Beyond 2 hours, we do charge an hourly fee. Most of our clients, I'd say 98% of our clients accomplish everything they need within those 2 hours. If people need additional hours, like I said, we can pay for that. With the regional centers, we mostly just work on coordination with the service coordinator, or if someone's living in a group home, with the group home director, or if someone has a lot of ILS hours, independent living services, we'll work in coordination with that ILS agency. But we're not doing hands-on social work case management. We're not going to the house and checking if there's food in the refrigerator. Did they go to their doctor's appointment? Did they follow up that doctor's appointment and fill the prescription? If a client needs that, and some of our clients do, we can use the trust money to hire a private case manager. We have a number of private case managers that we work very well with. We also work with JFS Cares. And then the trust signs a contract with that private case manager. And we regularly get reports, and we do a lot of coordination with that private case manager. So really the role of a trustee is really to manage the money. And that means investing the money properly, making sure the disbursements aren't going to hurt someone's government benefits, making sure that the money is being used in a prudent manner, and making sure it will last for as long as the person or the family, wants that money to last.
Can another person, like a grandparent or aunt who helps with someone's social security checks, also be involved with their CalABLE account information?
Sure. I mean, we ask families to designate one primary beneficiary advocate at a time. It could be an aunt, could be a grandparent, could be a family friend, and that person becomes a liaison. Let's say if they're the rep payee for the Social Security and they're also the person managing CalABLE, then that person becomes our primary liaison with JLA Trust. But JLA Trust, we only have a fiduciary responsibility for the money that's in the trust. We cannot go out and manage the other money unless there's other separate arrangements set up.
I'm not sure I understand this next question, so you're welcome to clarify, Richard. But who can be involved with a regional center person?
Richard? Are you there? I don't know if he's still there. If the person is not conserved, we generally can deal directly with the regional center client. If the person is conserved or would like to have somebody else, like a family member, helping them, that's fine, and we'll work with that family member. But we always want to hear directly from the person with the disability. We want to know what their preferences, their desires, and however they're able to communicate that. We really want to know what's going on in their head to the extent possible. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you had mentioned earlier that the eligibility for regional center was that the person had a disability before the age of 22.
Uh-huh.
That changed. And our understanding is that the person would be 18. And my daughter had a, car accident at 19 with a traumatic brain injury. She was only 19 after a few months. That was not eligible. So can you clarify whether that was 22 or 18? Is that changed at all? Do you know?
It could be 18. I'd have to double check that. It used to be 22, but that may have changed.
I think it's 18. I mean, I'll double check on it, but when you said 22, it kind of
Yeah.
opened up for us, like what?
I think it did change in the last few years. Yeah.
Back to 18?
Yes.
Well, this was 22 years ago, almost 23 years ago, and she wasn't eligible then, and she hasn't been eligible all along, so I don't understand.
Okay. Well, Len,
Yeah,
let me get back to you on that.
okay. Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. I'm just going to go back and finish up on CalABLE. So CalABLE, there's a National ABLE Act that passed under the Obama administration. And basically, we talked about that $2,000 maximum and how outdated it is. So the ABLE Act is an attempt to work around this. And it's saying if you set up a CalABLE account, you can have more than $2,000 and still keep your SSI and also your Medicaid. So now you can have whatever the IRS gift tax exemption is in that calendar year. So for 2024, that's $18,000. And you can go all the way up to 100,000 without impacting your SSI. See, it's not. All right. So the thing is, this also has an age ceiling. So you have to have been diagnosed by a medical professional before the age of 26. It's going to increase to age 46 in 2 more years. Now, CalABLE accounts are based on 529 college savings accounts. But what's different than the college savings accounts, you're only allowed one ABLE account per social security number. And the beneficiary is always the account owner, even if they're conserved. And the account could be opened by the beneficiary or any of these authorized legal representatives. They just recently added rep payee to the list. And so all the accounts are asset protected. And so they can't shelter income, but they can shelter your assets. So, and what can you spend the money on in a CalABLE account? It's also very broad, similar to a special needs trust. It's anything that helps improve your health, independence, or quality of life. So it includes things like food, education, housing. There's certain advantages of using a CalABLE account to pay for rent over SSI, but that has changed with the new SSI changes. So that's less the case. You can also use it for transportation, healthcare, and certainly you can use it for post-secondary education, any kind of professional education program, trade school. So you can use the money for a lot of different purposes. Now, if you want to sign up for CalABLE, you have to do it online. You cannot just walk into a bank and sign up. And you have to have the date of birth, address, and social security number of everyone on the account. And you must link it to a bank account. And so this is the URL if you want to sign up for CalABLE. It's run through the California State Treasurer's Office. So ABLE accounts and special needs trust, like I mentioned, can work together really nicely. You can use the ABLE account to pay for rent. For beneficiaries who are not conserved, they can have more direct control over their ABLE funds. If you are employed, you can add additional dollars into an ABLE account without impacting your SSI. And you can transfer money back and forth from a CalABLE account to a special needs trust. So the big picture is most people with disabilities are actually going to need 3 separate accounts: a personal bank checking account for SSI payments and work earnings if they're on the low side. That could also be a rep payee account that a parent or other relative or family friend is in charge of. And then that CalABLE account, if you're earning a better salary. And then that long-term planning with a savings account or the nest egg for the future with a third-party special needs trust. So I know I covered a lot. If you have any questions, the best way to reach me is to email me. Oops, I'll go back. I'll go back to that last window. And let's see if there's any final questions.
Michelle, are these slides going to be available after this Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So here. I encourage everyone to take a look at our website. Alexandra has done an amazing job on it. Lots of important information, and there's videos. So please take a look at our website.
So here's a question.
Okay.
For an adult child with disabilities who's already on SSI, when does it make sense for the parents to submit a claim for SSDI?
You can't until you're getting your own social security retirement income.
Once an ABLE account is open online, will you receive a debit card and or checks for the account?
Well, the way it works with checks is we cut the checks. So you won't be given blank checks to fill out.
Well, this is for ABLE, I think.
Oh, same thing with ABLE. You don't get checks. You tell them that where you need them to send a check. They also use the TrueLink card, similar to us. They take longer to load the card than we do. They have more internal kind of bureaucratic steps than we do. And just for Len, I want you to know, I did quickly double check, and you're right. It's the 18th birthday.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Thank
got
you.
confused with the disabled adult benefit, but with Regional Center, you're absolutely right. It's age 18.
Yeah, thank you very
Michelle,
much.
I'm the one who asked a question on the disabled adult child. My question is, when does it make sense? At 67 when they retire or at 70?
Well, that's a decision. That's a good question. You should talk to a financial planner about. I mean, most of the time people are told to wait until 70 to start getting their Social Security retirement so they get their full benefit. But it could be in your case, that whatever you're going to get, whatever percentage you're going to get, plus the 50% for your son or daughter, starting earlier might be worth it. Right?
All right.
Or I mean, you could run the numbers out yourself, once you know how much you're going to get at
Yeah.
different ages.
But you also mentioned that the medical side of it, that SSI, you can't lose
Right,
your insurance.
right. So after
Copay,
2
there's no
years,
copays.
right. So after 2 years of your adult son or daughter getting that form of SSDI, they'll be able to get Medicare, which is a better health insurance than Medi-Cal, for most doctors.
Right.
You know what I'm saying is you kind of need to sit down though and run your own numbers and
Okay.
figure out what's best for you and your family.
All right. And it's
And
50%,
not
you said.
all financial planners know about the benefits. Sometimes you might have to explain or show it to them. It's just not that well known,
Yeah.
that adult disabled child benefit.
Do you know do you know the criteria for being able to show, do the Social Security where your adult child gets half your benefit?
So yeah, it's not enough to just have a diagnosis. You have to be able to show that that adult child is not able to have what they call a sustainable income.
Okay.
So the thing is, a lot of people assume just because they have a regional center or they have a certain diagnosis, they're going to automatically qualify, but that's not the case. The government really wants to know is, can this individual, make a living? And
what,
so
yeah, and
that's where you might have gotten hung up in the
no, oh no,
past.
I haven't even tried yet. I haven't, I'm about to take my social security. So this is perfect timing and I can't thank you enough. But the um now I forgot my thought.
Well, we can come back to you. We have a couple more questions.
I've got a quick question. If you, thank you for the presentation, it was excellent and a lot of good information. If you have, can someone other than your child or son or daughter qualify for a special needs trust? Say if you have another individual or a relative, a spouse or someone who has become disabled to the point that you would need to set up a special needs trust. Can you do that?
Yeah, but so the definition of disability is we're generally using the federal definitions. So most of our clients come to us already getting SSI or SSDI.
Okay.
So the federal government has already said they're disabled or they're over the age of 65.
Okay.
So
we
it's a
can
little
set,
bit, the criteria is a little different for people over the age of 65.
okay, but we can set it up for someone else other
Yes,
than, okay, thank you.
yes. Yeah, a third party. Yeah, you can set up a third party for anyone.
Does JFS Cares also provide services to younger adults?
It's mostly it's mostly people at least above 30, I would say. How old is the individual?
Greg?
Hi, Michelle. It's Greg, the guy with all the questions. It's my son who's right now he's 30, but he'll be older later, I guess, when I die. So
Um, yeah, I mean, we have to talk to JFS and make sure it's a good fit for their
right,
case managers. There's some case managers out there who kind of specialize more in people with developmental disabilities, some more with people with mental health issues, some with dementia, right? So, there are a lot of good case managers out there, but I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, that's the thing
right,
is, we're talking, a minimum of $150 an hour
right.
for good case management.
And had I understood, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but if when his sister dies, I mean, is there like if I had a mechanism to let you guys know, then at that point they could hire a case manager with the funds from the SNT? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we could
Okay,
that would definitely be in
gotcha.
the file that's the
Okay,
intention.
okay, okay. Thank you.
So I remembered my question. So if let's say he gets this 50% of my social security and I get my full 100%, as I understand it from you.
Right.
And let's say in 5 years he's in treatment and he's improving and do they take it away? I mean, how do they know? I mean, I know
Well,
this
they
sounds
will
great.
do, well, all these programs do redeterminations. Some of them yearly, some of them every 2 years.
I see.
So they will ask for, they'll ask you to fill out information and they'll ask for a medical provider to provide information.
I
So
see.
yeah, you could, he could lose the benefit if he's doing really well, but that's
That's
kind of
great
a
if
good,
he's
right?
doing
That's a good thing, right? Because that
right.
means
I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much. This was incredibly helpful. I still don't understand this regional center thing, but I can do some research online.
So how old's your child, Andrea?
34.
I mean, if your child didn't qualify before, they're unlikely to qualify now, to be
Well,
honest.
we never went through those motions.
I understand that, but somebody like most people will get a referral from a pediatrician, from a school counselor, a teacher.
Well,
If no one ever gave you that referral along the way, I
well,
doubt.
he went to a special he went to a high school for special education and
I
special
understand
needs.
that, but again, if no professional ever gave you that referral, I doubt he will qualify now.
Well, uh, okay, but
The
there was a,
criteria gets really harder as the older you get. So it would be very hard to get qualified now.
but he could
I,
still get services
no, no, he's very unlikely to qualify or get any services from that system,
from regional.
from the regional center system. Correct.
That's different than SSI and all of this.
Correct.
I
Correct.
see. I see. Okay, I
He
appreciate. Okay.
absolutely, if he qualifies at 34 for SSI and Medi-Cal
Right,
and
all
food
of that.
stamps and
That's
IHSS
different. Okay,
and
got
even
it.
Section 8, absolutely.
Right.
Regional center, like we were just saying, if you didn't get in before the age of 18, it's unlikely to happen later.
I understand. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I was very unclear about that, but thank you. Okay,
it's
got it.
the whole reason I ended up doing this is because I ended up with a master's in public administration from USC, and then I had a son diagnosed, you know, at 12 months, 13 months with a global developmental disability. And I started like looking into all this, and it was so confusing. And I had taken classes on like federal and state funding of things, and it was still really hard to follow. So it's unfortunate that the way all these programs, they all kind of popped up independently, and so we have quite a patchwork of programs and services. So that's what's it's and there's, as we've just been talking about, there's different criteria, there's different eligibility. I mean, in general, I encourage people to apply for anything that seems like a good fit from eligibility. There are some things where it just might not make sense, like regional center, past the age of 18. I know Maddie did ask, can you use ABLE funds for things like movies and other entertainment? You could. I mean, I think most people are using their SSI or their SSDI for that kind of, that kind of smaller, um, non-recurring. It's good to use your ABLE account or your trust for recurring things like utilities, like cell phone and internet, things you're paying for every month. But smaller dollar items that are, kind of one-offs, most people just use their government money for that.
So, Michelle, the reason why I was asking that is,
Uh-huh.
so, my daughter moved to a residential community, and so we set up rent, her SSI to go directly to them for rent. And
Right.
then, but then we have all these other expenses, but you think we should kind of orient that so it's less in rent money going toward from
No, with the
SSI
group
and
home,
keep,
it's different. With the group home, it's different. Then I would use the CalABLE money. Yeah.
well, it's up to her. It's still for her to spend. It doesn't go to them. It goes, for her if
Right.
she goes and goes out to a movie or,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just less wieldy, right? CalABLE is less
Right.
wieldy. It's more unwieldy.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
just in general for everyone to know. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
So is JLA able to take over the role of rep payee for IHSS?
We haven't done it so far, but we are able to do that, but we have to charge a fee. So the thing is, we will only become rep payee for people who are already enrolled with us in an active account.
Okay, so Kathy, if that's a service that you want, maybe reach out separately.
I have a question. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No. Michelle, so you are a state licensed fiduciary trustee, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we've spoken before, and I think I sent you a copy
Yes.
of my daughter's special needs trust. Are you able to be a fiduciary, a trustee for a private special needs trust like we have?
No, we're really just sticking a pool trust for now.
Okay.
We can talk offline, but in
Yeah,
general,
we could talk offline, because there was a part of that special needs trust that, you know, right now my son would be the he's shown as a what?
Success.
Yeah, successor trustee, but he could assign that over to you guys.
yes. And a lot of people have been doing that. Yeah, they've been naming us as successor trustee down the road. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, because you had mentioned that we should spend down the current special needs trust and then open a new SNT with JLA trust. But
Right.
that doesn't make sense because there's too much money in there to suddenly change all of that.
Okay.
So we'd rather assign that to you guys.
That's fine.
You
That's
could
fine.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right. All right, everybody. I think we're gonna bring this to a close unless
No,
unless there's anything pressing.
nothing pressing, but I do want to say yes, everybody will get an email probably tomorrow, maybe the next day, depending on how long the recording takes. But we have the recording and you will get the slides, so you can look back on all the information that.
Thanks, Alexandra, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you all. Very attentive
Thank you.
group.
Thank you, Michelle and Alexandra.
Have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Good.